you for joining us. My name is Tim. I come from the CluedIn team. We have a fantastic topic here for you today. You are meeting with a couple of people here. I've got Felix, one of our good colleagues. I'll ask him to introduce himself in a second, but we have something in common, Felix and I, is that we both are sick. But we love data governance so much, we said, no, we have to come through. And we appreciate everyone for joining us wherever you are in the world. Today, we're going to be combining a couple of different topics. I think Felix and I, we are practitioners in that we spend the majority of our time working with our customers, hands-on with some of the Microsoft stack. And really, we're here today to kind of bring our experience of stitching together these different pillars of data management, and specifically really the Microsoft Fabric components, Microsoft Purview as that umbrella of data governance, and then bringing in the data quality and MDM components of CluedIn to kind of bring that end-to-end data foundation. So from myself, let me introduce myself before I ask Felix, our good colleague here from Microsoft, to do it himself. My name is Tim. I'm the CEO and co-founder of CluedIn. I've spent the last 10 years approximately of my life working in the MDM space, helping big, complex businesses kind of tackle pretty challenging data quality issues, really to get their data ready for insight. There's not a shortage, I guess you could say, of amazing things we could be doing with data, but actually getting that foundation in place to be able to make those things a reality. That's what Felix and I spend the majority of our time doing. Felix, love to hear you introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Felix. I'm a cloud solution architect for data and AI in Microsoft, but with a heavily focus on data governance with Purview. So my normal background was that I come to the IT world 10 years ago. Yeah, it's nearly 10 years ago. So, and I won't always become a software developer, a software engineer. So, but landing in data science and found out that undocumented data are not working. Yeah, so then if you don't know where your data is, you can't do good shit. So sorry for the harsh words, but that's the problem. Yeah, so you have to know where
You're
your
in the
data
right
is.
place,
So.
Felix.
And I have to kick in so many doors. That's maybe my nature since I was 10 years in the military as a human intelligence operator. So I've always have to work with data, and human intelligence operator, get data out of people. So now I get data out of databases. So that was my job before. So I have always worked with informations and data, and I love to structure them, and I think we need that. Yeah. So this is the base of everything. Yeah. If you want to work with data, you have to know your data. So easy thing. That's the reason why I'm doing data governance, why I love to do this. Yeah, and that's the reason why I'm here today, and I'm happy for that.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Felix. Now, also, Felix and I, considering we weren't feeling well today, we thought, let's have some fun. And I think for anyone who has joined us today, I think you're in for a good show because instead of going through a topic that could be considered maybe something you've seen before or maybe a little bit laborious, we've decided to set up a use case that is very timely from where we are. And this was all triggered by the fact that already we're hearing Mariah Carey in all the shopping centers that we're going to now. So this is a Christmas-themed use case that is focused on data governance and data management. And where we're going to start today is from the Microsoft side. So Felix is going to give us a good feeling of what are the capabilities that are capable from Microsoft today, whether that's from some of the Microsoft Fabric components and the data governance components like Microsoft Purview that he spends his time working with his clients. And then we're going to dive into, okay, great, we've got these amazing technologies. How do we actually get our data ready for insights and ready for this amazing technology? So with that in mind, Felix, I'm going to ask you to steal the screen. And Felix is a no slide type of person. So take the show, Felix, and then feel free to hand it back to me whenever you're ready.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'll take over the screen. That's the point there. Let's directly jump into Purview. So I think that's always the best way to do it. So let's see, there's my screen. Perfect. So I think everybody should now see my screen here. So the normal landing page of Purview. So I like always to start here, and I try to now to tell the story of Purview and how you can work in the next 50 minutes. So that's the idea. So normally when I'm doing this, to be honest, I can talk about Purview up to 2 to 3 hours just as an introduction. Yeah. So I try to make it as short as possible. But yeah, how Tim said, we are near to Christmas. It's time for storytelling. Yeah. So let's see where we have started. Yeah, we have bring in two words together. Yeah, we have normally before the M365 compliance and data security world, and we have the Azure data, the Azure Purview part, yeah, where we're doing the data catalog, data map stuff. So we bring this together on one portal. So it's really important to have this as a real data management, data governance platform at the end. So without data security, without security, nothing works in the world today. Yeah, so we have to prepare for this. We have to be our data ready for. We have to secure our data. So that's the part. But this is more not the part for today. Yeah, today we're talking about these two boxes here with data map and data catalog. So I shortly, well, I was starting here on the data map. So this is what we know from the old Azure Purview also. This is the data map, but we have to start here. This is the most technical part in Purview. But what I said during my introduction, it's important to know where your data are. Yeah, and you have to get this metadata into Purview, and that's the place here. We can register here our databases or data sources. We have a lot of out-of-the-box connectors to different kind of databases. For sure, a lot of out of the Azure Cosmos, but we have also other connectors to other vendors like DB2 from IBM. We see in Google, we see in AWS. We can work with SAP, and that makes it so easy to get the data into Purview and work with them there. So, but what we're doing here is normally, so I have to pull away Tim from my screen here so that I can see the channel box, the cancel box. So why we're doing this, and this is where I'm jumping now over to the data catalog, is we need data assets. Yeah, so the assets are basic material we need to work in Purview to create later data products, doing data quality on this, and so on. So, and we have here in data asset catalog, how I call it. Yeah, we have the discovery part here, the data catalog, and in the data catalog solution. And you can see I have some there here, my demo environment. We're working today with this one here. So the sales new Parquet file. This is what I'm showing today. And what is this? Yeah, when we're looking into Fabric, you see this is a normal table from an order. Yeah, with an order ID, we have a name into it, an email address, what they sell. So this is what this sales table said. So from this side. Yeah, so the data asset is the first row. Yeah, that's the basic. This is the cool thing with the new pricing model what we have in place with 6th of January. That will cost you nothing. Yeah, so to scan data sources, it's for free. Yeah, you can work on this asset and you can have it there, and you don't have to pay anything for it. So you just have to pay later on if this is part of the of a curated asset, means that is part of a data product, for example. So now I call this out. So what's important here, so metadata we see here, we have the schema, so we can do classifications on this. We have out-of-the-box classifications that we can easily bring in. And we have also here, this is what I'm using, is a custom classification I wrote with a regex, so that we can also classify our data automatically when we have a good idea for regex, or we're just creating a classification and doing this later manual. So this is always possible to classify your data. So doing reports on this to see, okay, what having there, and so on. Okay, when we coming to the next section, this is the new cool stuff. This is what turned around the last, I would say, 8 months. is the governance domains, the data products. Then we bring in data quality. We're waiting for a long time to have data quality in Purview. This was a big pain over the last years. And so now we start with governance domains. Yeah, so similar to the data domains, but we call it governance domains on one reason. We have different kind of types you can use. You can say, okay, it's a data domain. This is very familiar, but we also can use it as a functional unit, a line of business. Say, okay, we want to give it a more deeper. I lost the word for it, Tim, but there's not a problem. I think just to give it a deeper kind of information. Maybe you can say this in this way. So, but what is a governance domain? A governance domain is what we say a logical construct. Yeah, so I have here my supply chain. Say, okay, this is my data domain. So, and I would say a governance domain is like a basket. Yeah, you can put in sync there and collecting there. I have my data product here. You can have more than once. Yeah, this is my personal tenant here. So I start building up a data platform here. But for showing today, so I can put in my glossary terms, my OKRs, and my critical data elements. The custom attributes, I don't will say anything to that because it's there at the moment, it's not there. So we will see this at the beginning, I think, of the next year. So we have OKRs is like object key results. So we think, hey, okay, how can help me this data product for what could help me this in the real world? Yeah, I use the OKR for achieving 20% faster delivery to the customer. Critical data elements could be personal data of customers, where we should know, okay, this should be really important that anybody who working with the data know, okay, this is a critical data element. Don't put it in a report, for example, when you don't want to get problems with GDPR. So, and in the future, it will be possible to have on this critical data elements separate data quality. So that means if you have business relevant data, you can say, okay, I want to monitor this separate because they are so important over all data products. You can spread this over all data products. So, and the important thing here is the data product, also logical construct. Yeah, so we can go into this here. So I have one thing here is my orders thing. That's my data product. So we have in the description. So that's what we have to write by our own. And we also can put in their use cases, where we're using this data from this data product. So and this is why I say, okay, the bottom line is the data asset. We have here the assets who build this data product. I have item report in Fabric. We have the one lake data table, and we have also the Parquet file in the data lake. And I can put in the glossary terms. In this case, we have the orders glossary term, just to describe it a little bit better, that we have some acronyms, but it's also have the same meaning of an order. And what we're seeing here, and this happened automatically, we have a critical data element for emails. Emails is an GDPR relevant, but it's also important that the email is correct. Because this is how we contact our customers, for example. So that is important. That happened automatically. I aligned the column email, and always when I'm now putting in the sales new Parquet file in the data product. So an asset could be put in more than one data product. You could align it here with the critical data element, and then it's automatically there. So, and what I say, OKR, orders leaving the stock 20% faster. All this data should help there to achieve this. And before I hand over to Tim, I shortly go over, and this is what we have new here is the data quality. This is the point. We need a data product. We need a data product to do data quality on the data asset. So, and then you can see here, we have an all over quality score, but this is, we have more than one column there. So we have to dig into it, what happened here. And we can see here, we have our rules. So we have standard rules like empty-bool, uniqueness. We can for reference table and on types, whatever, and we can also have custom. Yeah, I've choosing this one here. I create my own one that is proving is this email address correct. To be honest, I'm doing a very easy one. So if the @ sign is missing, yeah. So I think if you look into email, so hey, is this working? Yeah. So but this is the only way it's working. You can also do it with a country code on this, and that's it. Yeah. So when you're working with customers, yeah, maybe internally you can find another schema. So then I can see, okay, on which column my rules are failing. Yeah, and in this case, it's sales order number. When I go back to the rules, I see I did this on sales order number. I'm doing the unique values sales order number. Why it happened is, okay, in one order you can have more than the customer buying a bike, a TV, whatever, and they put this together in one order. So there is no uniqueness in the table. Yeah, it's unique at the end. Yeah, so because it's one order. But we have to decide. Yeah, want to have a table without complex data types like list and arrays. So this is a case here. Because I know we had sometimes problems with complex data types. So yeah, to doing data quality scans on an array is really difficult. Yeah, so that's the reason why I'm building the table in this way. So, and from there on, we jump back to the data products. And this is, excuse me, and what we have here is now that we get the data quality score also in the data product. So it is the average of all of three of them. In this case, we just have data qualities here, so it's exactly the same. But it's also possible that we have more than one data asset with data quality rules on it. And we can see for the user, and this is what we want to achieve, is it should be business user friendly. Yeah, you can look under this and have a good overview of a data product, how to use it, and you see, okay, how's the quality, how would be the updating frequency, and you can be sure if this is published, and you can see what is in there and you can work with it. Yeah, you make data reusable. Yeah, it's not like in the past that you have you're creating the next view and the next view and the next view, and you have 10,000 times the same view of the same data. Yeah, so in this case, you make it reusable, and at the end, it's really cool because you make the data findable. And if I know my data, I can doing all the data security stuff on this. I can prepare my data, I can protect my data, and then we came to the Gen AI world where I can say, okay, we're coming away from this shit in, shit out scenario, so we bring in good data. And yeah, when we're finding these kind of lacks in data quality, we can't do this in Purview to clean it up. And I think that's a good point to move over to Tim.
Thanks so much, Felix. Felix, you brought up some good points. And before I steal the screen away from you, what Felix took you through is some of the kind of core pillars that Microsoft Purview brings. And some of these are very defensive elements that we know and expect from data governance. Things like privacy, security, classification, finding personal data and flagging it to you, e-discovery, GDPR, subject access requests, and things like this. Information discovery, audits, all of these things, whether we like it or not, are things we have to do as businesses. These are how we run as businesses. We have to be compliant. We have to have good practices around data, because it turns out there's a really positive knock-on effect of having good data management practices, is that when we want to do amazing things in Microsoft Fabric and Azure AI Studio, guess what? We've got data that is clean and compliant, discoverable, easy to understand, and therefore ready for insight. So where I am going to steal the screen away from Felix right now is to take over essentially at the same place. We're back in Microsoft Purview, where we have scanned all these different types of sources, and we do that from our data map. In this particular case, we've got sources coming from across all different types of places. Let me just re-authenticate. These kind of places cover things like Snowflake, Data Lake, OneLake, SQL Server, etc. In our world and in our demonstration, we've got lots of lakes. We've got dataverses, different environments. In this particular example here, if we head over to our Azure Data Lake here, we have a whole bunch of discovered assets and a bunch of scans that are running either manually or on scheduled basis. And think of this like your purview. It is your pulse on the business. What data do we have where? And it's keeping that eye, that eagle eye on when new assets are coming in, when assets are getting updated. And so this is a good feeling. This helps us answer a couple of key questions. What data do we have? Where is it coming from? Where is it going? We get a lot of this automation inside of Microsoft Purview. Let's head to this data catalog where we get to experience the data assets. And for anyone who has spent time in a data catalog before, you'll know this is a very familiar type of situation where we go to look for something like customer. And unfortunately, from a search perspective, we come back with, in our case, 240 results. Now, that's not too bad in a small instance, but you can imagine if you're a big company, it's going to be 240,000. And so we can search and filter and facet our way to find those particular files or reports that we're after, or we could look at the new abstraction that has been provided to us by Microsoft Purview in the form of the data product search. And this is the search that we want to expose to the business. Because when we want the internal users of Purview to search for the word customer here, we want them to find essentially a very small list of data products. And this brings us to the data product we're going to be working with today. I think this is very appropriate and good timing in that we have this data product here called the Naughty and Nice list for Santa. And as we dive into this data product, as you can see from the description, what we've decided to do here is we've taken that large body of assets and we've drawn a box around a certain number of assets and we said, these are very important assets and we're going to invest in them. And we are going to provide a product owner and we're going to put budgets behind it and we're going to put people and time and a project manager behind it because there's something important about this data that we want the business to make use of it, but there might be a little bit of work involved in it. And in this particular case, we've got a little bit of a challenge. In this challenge, the scan from Microsoft Purview has brought up that Santa, just like a lot of us as companies, have a data silo issue where the naughty and the nice list that Santa has been keeping for the last few years is scattered across different places. In fact, we've got a naughty list here, we've got a naughty list here, we've got the nice list here, and the nice list from 2024. But that's not going to help Santa deliver his presents. He needs one beautiful list of consolidated, nice, and naughty children to know what and who gets delivered presents at Christmas. So like I said, this is not me losing my brain. This is Felix and I decided to have a little bit of fun with the use case today. And so I guess the first step is, it's good knowing that we have this data, but there's a little bit of work involved in it. And the challenge is actually the challenge of master data management, in that we don't have a single list, a single view of our data. In fact, I don't want 4 files here. I don't. I want one single list that tells me the kids I should be delivering to and the kids I should not be delivering to. How morbid. And so for this, we need to do a little bit of setup between CluedIn and Microsoft Purview. So first of all, let's call out a couple of important things. Number one, notice that at the top in our data product, we've marked this particular asset as a master data and a reference data type. Now, there are all different types of data products. Some of them might be for analytics and machine learning. Some of them might be for operational use cases. In this particular case, it's important that we mark this as master data and reference data, because this is something that CluedIn is looking for. It's looking at the data products that are marked with this particular type. It won't look at the other data products. It'll only look at this particular type. Also notice that we've put in a description. We've also specified in Microsoft Purview a couple of use cases, such as automatically generate Santa's list before he leaves on the sleigh, etc., etc. These are all things that I think machine learning can help us with. But as we go down, one of the other things to highlight here is that we have tagged this particular data product with this glossary term of Santa. And what that is telling CluedIn is this is a data product that you should be monitoring. And one of the benefits of this, Felix touched on this before, is that, you know, we want this experience of getting this data ready for insight to be business friendly, to be something that can be wielded by non-technical audiences, because often they're the ones that are actually the experts on the data itself. And we shouldn't have to ask them to suddenly become experts in Python or Parquet, or even understand what Parquet is, things like SQL or data modeling. And that's exactly what we're going to do here once we have published this particular data product, which we have here. Let's head over to CluedIn for a moment and check out the CluedIn experience. The first thing to notice is there is an immense familiarity with the user experience of CluedIn, in that if I head back to my home screen of Purview, this is Purview, this is CluedIn. This is Purview, this is CluedIn. There is this nice familiarity of user experience that if you're spending your time in Microsoft Purview, you'll have a very familiar experience within CluedIn as well. This is our home screen, where it kind of tells us, you know, how many records we have, how many sources of data that we have as well. We're going to dive into the sources that we have here. Now, because I have synced Microsoft Purview with CluedIn, what it means is that those 4 assets that I had in my data product, they are automatically synced into the CluedIn platform. Not only that, but CluedIn will automatically set up the Azure Data Factory or Synapse pipelines behind the scenes to move the data from its original source, in this case it was the ADLS Gen 2, into the CluedIn platform so that the business users can actually start working with it. And so what was in Purview in our data catalog data product before, let me just dive back there to remind you. So let's head here and let's head to our naughty and nice list. We have our 4 files here. And as we dive into the CluedIn platform, you can see those same 4 assets are here. But as we dive into the individual assets, we're actually now looking into the records itself. So we're moving from a metadata level into a record level. And here I'm getting the first glimpse into my naughty list of children. So here I have Jackson as an example. It looks like I've got duplicate rows of some of his data as well. And then I've got here a very clear reason of why he's on the naughty list. Looks like refused to share cookies is why he's on the naughty list. Now, the problem is here is as we start to look into the data, we can see it's got holes in it. We're missing emails for some of these kids. We're missing IDs. It's very patchy data. And as we move on to the other assets, you'll realize, oh, there's no easy way to blend this data together. And so what we need to do here is essentially map this data into a business domain. Felix called this a governance domain before. Governance domain, think of this as like he said, like a grouping, like a box. Sometimes you could use it as a line of business. Sometimes you could use it to describe, you know, a customer, sales department, HR, marketing, and things like this. And through this, what we're wanting to do is We don't want our business to ever be talking about ADLS Gen 2 and CSV files and Parquet. We want them to be talking about children because they're who we're going to be delivering these presents to. CluedIn is essentially about translating that technical nature of data into something the business can understand. And through a pretty friendly mapping experience in CluedIn, all we've done is basically flag that the ID of the children and the full name is what we want to display when we see those records in the platform. Now, this has caused a little bit of an issue because after I've mapped these 4 different files together in the CluedIn platform, and I head over as Santa to look at my final list, if I drill down by the list of children, there's a little bit of a problem. There's only supposed to be 50 children here. I've obviously got some duplicate records. Unfortunately, the data has not made it easy for me. So I might need to clean it. I might need to set up matching rules to figure out if we don't have IDs, how are we going to somehow bring this final list together? And so if we were to look for someone like, let's just try Natalie as an example. Here, this is not good. Because when I search for Natalie, I get 2 different records. And in some cases, I have the email. In some cases, I don't. In some cases, I have the ID. In some cases, I don't. And so this is not something we can work with. And obviously, the anecdote can be easily applied to any domain for any of you listening here in regards to single view of customer, single view of suppliers, vendors, employees, anything on the supply chain like products, materials. This same issue applies even though we're being a little bit silly here with our example. And so we've got this problem where we have data coming in and we need to produce that final list. Now, once we've got the data into the CluedIn platform, there are also all different ways to be able to get the data out of the CluedIn platform as well. First of all, CluedIn supports all of the Microsoft Fabric stack. So everything from data activator to real-time intelligence to Synapse data engineering. We also support, classic things like ADLS Gen 2. Of course, OneLake is supported, Azure Databricks. I have actually set up 2 export targets. One is to the data lake, and one is to a good old classic SQL database or SQL, serverless pools if you're using that for your data warehouse. And this is just to kind of show the kind of targets that this data can write out to. Why are we showing this? Well, once we've got this beautiful data in the CluedIn platform, we want to make sure we can get it out to the target systems where we can actually generate the insight. So if Felix was to bring up his Fabric and generate a notebook, I would rather him work on this data rather than the initial 4 files that exist in that data product. And we can always update that data product at a later point to take our new beautiful output of data. For that, CluedIn has this concept called streams. Streams is a way to be able to say, hey, what data do I want to share to what system? I've set up 2 streams right here, and let's go check out one of them where pretty easy to understand that the type of data that I'm wanting to share is where the type of data equals a child. The export target configuration is to our data warehouse. In this case, it's a SQL Server database. I've created a table called children, and then I've just output the age, the city, the country, everything Santa would need to be able to deliver those presents to the children, depending if they're on that naughty or nice list. However, I've still got this problem. I'm sending out a bad list to these target systems. So we need to do something about that. Now, it turns out that these streams of data are actually feeding a live dashboard that Santa and Mrs. Claus are using to figure out which children are next, which ones haven't been delivered their presents, which ones are naughty, which ones are nice. And we can see there's this nice distribution here. Looks like 49 good are naughty. 49 are naughty and 26 are not. So it seems like it's going to be a sad Christmas for most of these children. How morbid. But this is also a live feed of data. So as we fix things in the CluedIn platform, we're actually going to see this dashboard update live. And I think this also kind of gives you an indication of CluedIn really fits nicely into this overall supply chain of data where it's bringing the business and it's bringing engineering together. We still need engineering to play significant roles in this supply chain. But what CluedIn is really responsible for, and what Microsoft Purview is really responsible for, is I need to bring the experts in from the lines of business that know about the actual data. They don't code. They don't know what a regular expression is. They don't know what SQL is. They don't know what Python is. But they can look at data and they can say, there's something wrong here. And I know this because I work with that data every single day. And this is what we're going to go and address. So let's remind everyone of the problem. We have two different types of data that we brought into the system. We have 100 presents and we have 75 children. The problem is we've got duplicates. We had two Natalies before, and she's not the only issue that we've got here. So there's a couple of things we can do. First of all, we can head over to our management section. We can head to our deduplication, and we can set up what are called deduplication projects. What these do is they allow a non-technical user to set up a set of matching criteria that could possibly surface children that are the same child, but they don't have any IDs. So we might say if their name is kind of the same and their age is kind of the same, and maybe the city and the country or the address is kind of similar, they are strong indicators we might have the same child, and we might want to merge those different together. Now, I've prepared one of these before the webinar for us, where I've set up a set of matching rules, where what we're doing is we're using a combination of the name of the child, the age of the child, and then the reason why they were on the naughty list or not on the naughty list. Notice that the type of matching that's done here for the name is equals. The age is equals, but actually here for the reason, we're willing to be a little bit fuzzy, where actually the reason might change. It might be slightly different. And once we've generated this, what CluedIn does is it brings up a list of possible matches. And I like that number I'm seeing down the bottom, which is 25, which seems to be the kind of rough number I'm looking for. This, in the end, should produce 50 children in the end instead of 75. But due to the fact this data doesn't fit together nicely, this is where I really don't have a trusted view of this data. And if we dive into any of these particular records, these are records that have basically said, listen, I seem to match what you set up in your matching rules. And here we can see that we've got Hannah Williams, that age is 10, city's Barcelona. It looks like the reason for being naughty, claimed they were Santa's spy, but only watched TV. Interesting. But it looks like in one of the assets, it has an ID and an email. And we need to decide, are these the same Hannah? Now, we can go through very selectively and we can say, it looks like I need this to be the golden record. And we can see a nice little preview of what this will look like once it's merged. We can approve this guy here. Or if we're pretty confident with our matching rules, we can actually just go ahead, select all, approve all in bulk. Let's actually approve all across all the pages. So if we go to the different pages here, you can see approved, approved, approved. And then we can actually ask the engine to go ahead and merge those particular records. And so basically what we're doing here is we're telling the engine, you know those two Natalies we saw before? We're quite confident they're the same Natalie. Please merge their records together. So when we search, we only have one Natalie, and that's going to produce our beautiful list of naughty and nice kids in one single place. If we go and take a look at some of these records that have been merged, so for example, let's open ARIA. The other nice thing is that this will visually actually start to show us how CluedIn was able to stitch these different ARIA records together from the different Azure Data Lake files, the naughty list, the nice lists, and etc. So this means if we go back to our search and we start to filter by our children, okay, this is looking much better. I've now got a list of 50 children where I don't have my duplicate records anymore. However, there's still issues. I'll give you an example. If we head over to our cleaning studio in CluedIn and open our data stewarding interface, what we can see is actually that even though we've been able to fix some of those duplicate records, it turns out that some of our Power BI charts, especially when we break down by something like country, aren't going to be that useful anymore. And you can see if I just refreshed, you can see these charts have automatically changed in front of me as well. So this is a live feed of data that we're feeding out to the data lake and to that SQL Server database as well. And look, the distribution is looking a little bit nicer in that we've got half kids that are nice and half kids that are naughty. And you can imagine any consumer can consume this data. It could be operational systems. It could be event hubs, service hub. In this case, it's more analytical tools like SQL Server and Azure Data Lake. But there's still issues with this data. So if we go and take a look at the records that we've got here, this is think of this like a data stewarding environment where it can start to surface what types of data quality problems might exist. As Felix kind of alluded to before, it's good that we know what data we have. It's good that it's searchable and discoverable. But if there's problems with the data, someone needs to fix it. Someone needs to fix it. And that really is the responsibility not only of CluedIn as a technology, but the stewards that are given that responsibility to fix the child data or the present data, or in your cases, customer data, vendor data, supplier data, product data. And there's a couple of problems here. They might not jump out immediately to you, but if I start to look through some of this data, I can use this handy breakdown functionality, such as breaking down the country that children are in. And you can already start to see there's some issues here. People are being very creative about the way they spell Australia, or there's different casing, or there's different phonetics, or there's different languages for the same thing. Now you can imagine, in this case, we've only got 18 choices, but if this was 2,000 or 20,000 choices, it's going to be really hard to actually find where the data quality issues are, let alone fix them. This is where CluedIn comes in with its smarts, and it can start to surface essentially suggestions on what it thinks are the same values. And as we cycle through the different techniques, they will all just pick up different variations of particular issues. For example, this particular variation is saying, I think all of these should be this. That makes sense. I think all of these should be this. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. And as we start to tell the engine to go and fix that, you can already start to see the quality on the right-hand side is looking a lot better. Now, you would imagine you only want to fix this type of data quality issue once. You don't want to have to constantly be fixing the same issues again and again. And this is why often we have to ask IT to get involved, because they might need to code something. Well, if we click this process button to submit our changes back into the CluedIn platform, we can actually ask it here to go ahead and automatically generate us business rules, so we don't have to manually build these rules ourselves. And when we push this data in, there's a couple of things that are going to happen. First of all, CluedIn is going to fix all of those records with the nice new values. It's going to generate an automated audit trail that tells us, I fixed the value from U.S.A to USA, and here's who did it, and here's when that change was done. Also, what's been done just a few seconds ago, and we can see that here, CluedIn has automatically generated us these business rules. And these are very easy to explain in that where a child's country is equal to Australia, bad spelling, or Australia with a Z, I have an automated action here, which is to set the value back to this nice version of Australia. And so what is this doing? This is essentially patching that problem from ever happening again. And so we've brought data in from 4 different sources. We have sent it out into one single Parquet file out to Felix for his Fabric workloads. We have now got rid of all the duplicates. We have now cleaned some of the data quality issues. And all along the way, this is backed by a very familiar looking workflow engine. So you can imagine process is important here. And in this particular silly case, we've got Mrs. Claus approval in that everything to do with changing records, updating, duplicating, getting rid of duplicate children, attaching presents to children, all of that goes through an approval process by Mrs. Claus. Now, this here is the Power Automate engine embedded directly inside the CluedIn platform. And so what this brings is not only that familiarity, very similar to the kind of user experience of CluedIn for Microsoft Purview customers, but what it also brings is that list of the over 1,000 of connectors to be able to plumb this workflow into other systems like SAP, or maybe something like Dynamics, or something like Teams, email, things like Jira for Service Desk, and so forth. And so you can imagine this is not only about allowing the business to come in, have tools to clean and get rid of the duplicates of the record and enrich them and standardize them, but also putting a good stamp of process around it, approval of this data has gone through the business, and therefore anything I'm going to deliver out to Felix in regards to a single list of this naughty and nice list for children, he knows confidently that's gone through the team that are the experts on that data. And so they've given it their stamp of approval that they approve the changes that have actually happened to this data itself. Now, you can imagine this is all sometimes a little bit tricky, where you might be handling some data cases that aren't so easy, such as where Australia with a Z should be Australia with an S. And all along the way, CluedIn has a co-pilot experience to kind of help you essentially figure out where the data quality issues are, but then also help you fix the problems as well. Let's take a simple case where I open such things like maybe the presents. So let's go to the presents here. And here we can see a file called Kids Present Wish List. We've got a present ID, a kid ID, a present name, and a present description. And you can imagine at some point you might want to open a nice co-pilot and actually start to interrogate this data. I might want to ask what this data is about. I might want to ask, are there any data quality issues in this data? And the thing that's nice with CluedIn's co-pilot experience is that it's actually embedded inside the CluedIn application. Here's what I mean. If I was to ask something like, can you tell me about this data set? You can imagine if I was to ask this to, a ChatGPT or a Copilot or a Gemini, it will quite happily say, no worries, upload the data and we can start talking about it. But in this case, because our Copilot is actually integrated into CluedIn, I want it to come back and actually tell me a little bit about what we're looking at here. Like, this data set appears to be related to kids' presents or toys. It looks like the present ID and the kid ID seem to be unique identifiers for each present and kid respectively. So this sounds like there's a foreign key, right? Makes sense. It looks like the parent name represents the name of each present. The description is here, and so forth. And so you can start to imagine if you're needing to solve particular problems, having this co-pilot here all along the journey, to the word itself, I guess, is a real co-pilot when it comes to fixing data quality issues. Now, CluedIn operates off all different types of base models. We support all the ones that are in Azure AI Studio. So this could be your GPT-4s, your GPT 3.5s, anything that can be hosted in Azure AI Studio can be used as the models to drive some of this automation as well. So I think with that in mind, I will summarize what we've basically done here. Felix has taken us through an introduction of Microsoft Purview, where he's given us the kind of overall view of what it's for, the data governance pillars. We've looked at the data quality capabilities of Microsoft Purview. We've seen the data asset scanning. And the most important piece here, I think, that we're both touching on is those data products. That's that abstraction that basically says, out of our entire data catalog, here is a list of assets we're going to be paying very special attention to and very special care, because there's something valuable in this data and we are going to bind it to some key business metric. Felix touched on this when he talked about OKRs. That's one way of describing that's some metric that we're trying to hit. And that's usually going to be something like revenue gained, employee happiness, operational risk lowered. Some of those are going to be top line benefits. Some of those are going to be bottom line benefits. So we've brought the data in. We've been able to clean and consolidate that beautiful one list so that Santa can go off and do his job, all backed by the workflow process of Mrs. Claus, so she can approve all the changes that are being done by the data stewards, or I guess we should call them data elves in this particular case, Felix. And then we've been able to farm that data off to consuming systems. In this particular case, we've set this up to the data lake team, potentially for machine learning and AI cases, but we've also shared this out to the data warehouse team via your classic kind of RDBMS, kind of traditional data warehouses approach as well. As I said, CluedIn supports all of the different parts of Microsoft Fabric, Azure Databricks, Azure AI Studio, Event Hub, Snowflake, PostgreSQL, just to name a few. So I think with this in mind, Felix and I are going to close up. Be aware also, happy to answer questions if you have some. Please put them in the Q&A if you do. I can already see a couple there that have been loaded up, so we'll make sure that we spend some time on that. So let's dive into the Q&A, Felix. I'll fire some questions off. You let me know if this is a question probably more pertinent for you as well. So first one is, the session will be recorded. So we will send this out and the set of slides as well. So these slides that we're seeing right here, they will be sent out after, as well as a recording. And a couple of the points we just want to touch on before we go into some more questions. First of all, I think one of the things that gets Felix and I up early in the morning and working in data governance is, first of all, this revitalization on the data governance as a real value-adding thing. In that I think traditionally it's been thought of this very defensive element and necessary, right? Especially in highly regulated industries. But I think what practitioners like Felix and I have gathered is there's such an offensive part of data governance, which is highly focused on getting data ready for insight, more easy to discover, easier to generate insights out. But when you do actually generate the insights, you can build those layers of trust up that you know, where did the data come from? What happened to it along the way? Who was responsible for making those changes? When did those changes come in? And let's be honest, that's what's going to give you a lot more solace when you're actually working with data and viewing those reports, is knowing that lineage and audit trail. So for those of you who have not in Purview already, or have not started, the Purview platform, of course, has been GA for some time right now. There's been a complete revitalization of the platform, bringing those offensive and defensive elements in. The CluedIn platform plumbs directly into Microsoft Purview, providing that familiar experience as well. But as Felix said, it's really focused on that federation piece of, now that we know what data we have, who's going to be responsible for actually cleaning it and harmonizing it and standardizing it and making all those decisions of what's the final package of that data we're going to present to the business. CluedIn itself is built on the backbone of Microsoft Azure products. So, everything from hosted in Azure Kubernetes service to hosted and protected via Azure Defender, integrating with all the different tools on the right-hand side. But there is very much this shim of AI that just sits through the entire stack. And I think Felix would attest to this is the same with Microsoft Purview, with Microsoft Fabric as well. You've all got your co-pilots there. You've all got AI, blending more into those products on a daily basis. So next question, is the similarity between UIs of CluedIn and Purview intended? Was there a co-development? So the good thing is from a CluedIn side, we've been working with the Microsoft Purview team for, I would say, the last 18 months, if not more, on making sure that Microsoft have this amazing story around an end-to-end data governance journey. And through this, very much there's been a lot of co-development. In fact, CluedIn was one of the kind of early strategic partners when it comes to MDM and data quality integrations into Purview. And the truth is that we've just found a lot of people that are using Microsoft Purview seem to gravitate towards CluedIn as a natural solution for actual MDM and data quality. So there's one more question. Are there more? Actually, there's a few more coming in. Are there more complex rules possible for the merging process? For example, in case the information from two tables is contradictory. This is a good example. I mean, Felix, why don't you first of all touch off about what are the types of data quality rules that are in Microsoft Purview and where you think those what part of the supply chain they tackle and maybe what parts they don't?
So I hope I got your question right. So, but yeah, our rules we have I think 6 rules. So it's basic rules, and at the end you can choose regex and some functionalities to create your own rules. So that's part of it. Yeah. I'm not sure if we will see in the future maybe that you can doing this with code like Python or Java. So I know there is a big ask for, but I don't know the strategy or if this will come or not. But yeah, so this is how we can doing this data qualities. We have a basic set. So but to be honest, so if you're going, so it depends on which corporation you're following. Yeah, so if you're going with a Dharma or anything else, you have normally 6 to 7 standard rules. Yeah, so this is what you have. So and the rest is what you can do with coding or something similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, or what you can use very often is if you have products, yeah, you use reference tables. You say, okay, if you found this product, if you found this name in your reference table, so then it's good. If not, so we have a data quality issue here. So, but also we come back to CluedIn. Maybe it could be it's a wrong writing of the product. So, and then we have to clean it up. So that's I think a perfect play together between CluedIn and Purview on data quality side.
So, I mean, to the question asker, I mean, on the matching side, it's a really good question because, the traditional techniques of deterministic and probabilistic matching rules, they pick up a certain level. Let's just use a silly example, like they'll pick up 80% of the matches, but then it's always that 20% that have these nuances where, you've got these semantic differences between values, like there's a sector called or an industry called technology, and you've got another industry called like data and AI, and you think, well, there's no classic string comparison distance that would be between those that would be considered a match. But semantically, come on, data and AI is in the technology industry. And that's really where CluedIn's use of the large language models behind the scenes is really helping where traditional matching techniques do not help. And so CluedIn takes 4 different approaches to matching. The first is it's deterministic and it's probabilistic. The third is it uses actually underneath a graph database to actually evaluate the relationships between records. So, you would say if there's an overlap of cardinality between the records, that's a strong indication there's some relationship. And these could be direct relationships or indirect relationships. And the final is the pass-through that's done through with AI. And that's where, we use the large language models to go through and do these parses of, imagine if you have a a city where it is Sydney. And then there's another record that looks similar, but it's got a city of Hogwarts. Well, you would argue Hogwarts is useless in that because it's just not a city. Now, classic rules would not pick that up, but a large language model would definitely be able to pick up that there's no use even in trying to compare those and then influence the matching in any way, in a negative way, because Hogwarts is not even a value that you should be considering as a match. And there's where I guess these more complex cases come in. Let's go through two more. I know we're just over time, but let's go through two more, and very much aware of people's time. But the next one is, after the creation and discovery of data products in Purview, then the cleaning and merging of CluedIn. Will the CluedIn platform write back the data to the origin of the data source, for example, OneLake? So there's two different cases here. One is the analytical case, and that's where we would write back to something like OneLake, Azure Data Lake. Then there's the operational case, which is more what the first part of the question is I want to write back to Dynamics, or I want to write back to the original source where it came from, a Workday, a Salesforce, you name it. And that's where the operational pieces come in. Before in the demonstration, we showed you actually how you could use the workflow engine in CluedIn, which is Power Automate. And in that, you get the luxury of all these connectors that actually allow you to write that beautiful, clean data back directly to those sources. And if Power Automate doesn't have a native connector, it always has classic ODBC and HTTP connectors as well that should allow you to cater for most situations. We'll answer one more question, and then I will leave everyone to their day. There was a demonstration about merging of country names to help data quality. Could you automatically plug in industry standards for country names like ISO? And although this is just a classic good question, the fact is, guess what? Large language models have made the kind of traditional approach to this absolutely obsolete. And so this would classically fall under the banner of reference data, where you maintain lists of countries and ISO codes and things like this. And it's a very deterministic way to do it. And it's okay for managing things like countries. But for things like product types and categories that could be in the thousands or 10,000s, those lists often get a little bit too hard to manage. And so I think you'd be surprised how amazing these large language models are today at being able to handle and standardize things like country names and ISO codes without having to maintain this list and data yourself. Excellent, guys. So with that in mind, I think Felix and I will say thank you to everyone who joined us. Apologies for Felix and I being a little bit sick. It sounds like me a little bit more than Felix, just coughing and splattering my way through this webinar. But hopefully you can make your way through that spittle and get some good content out of Felix and I. If you do have any further questions, feel free to follow up. But we wish you a fantastic day. And Felix, thank you so much for your time for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Well, it was a pleasure. It was fun to be here. Yeah, was great. Wish you all the best and have a nice day, I would say.
See you, team.